The ice storm hit Outpost Theta 7 without warning, as they always did on the mining moon of Glacius 4. Marcus Chen, the human foreman overseeing the deuterium extraction operation, had seen dozens of these storms in his 3 years on this frozen rock, but he'd never seen anything like what he found huddled behind the fusion generator that evening. 2 small creatures, no bigger than terrier puppies, lay trembling against the heated exhaust vent. Their fur was crystallized with ice, their breathing shallow and desperate. At first glance, Marcus thought they might be some local fauna he hadn't encountered before. But as he knelt closer, his headlamp illuminating their features, he realized these were no natural animals. Their eyes held an intelligence that made his breath catch, their pupils dilating with awareness as they registered his presence. They looked like wolf cubs, but their fur shimmered with an iridescent quality that shifted between silver and deep purple. Metallic patterns ran along their spines like circuit boards beneath the skin. One whimpered, a sound so achingly pitiful that Marcus didn't hesitate. He shed his thermal coat and wrapped them both inside, feeling their tiny bodies shivering against his chest as he ran back to his quarters. The outpost's medical scanner couldn't identify their species. The database returned nothing. Marcus improvised, setting up a heated enclosure offering them nutrient paste and water. The pups, clearly starving, devoured everything he provided. As warmth returned to their small bodies, they began to glow faintly, bioluminescent patterns pulsing along their fur in what Marcus interpreted as contentment. He spent the night watching over them, missing his sleep shift entirely. The larger of the 2 pups, once revived, nuzzled against his hand with surprising affection. The smaller one curled into a ball in his lap, occasionally opening one eye to check if he was still there. Marcus found himself smiling for the first time in months. Life on Glacius 4 was lonely, and these strange creatures filled a void he hadn't realized had grown so large. By morning, the pups were playful, chasing each other around his small quarters, their bioluminescence flickering with what could only be described as joy. Marcus had decided to name them Luna and Nova. He'd figure out where they came from later. First, he needed to finish his shift report and check the deuterium yields. He never got the chance. The proximity alarm shrieked at 800 hours. Marcus rushed to the command center, where his entire crew stood frozen, staring at the holographic display. The sky above Glacius 4 was no longer empty. 2,000 ships had materialized in orbit. They were unlike anything in the Confederate database. Sleek vessels that seemed to be carved from a single piece of dark metal, adorned with the same iridescent patterns that marked the pups' fur. They ranged from small fighters to massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything humanity had ever constructed. The largest vessel at the fleet center was a cathedral of technology, pulsing with that same ethereal glow. The communication console erupted with incoming signals, all on the same frequency, all broadcasting the same message in a language the universal translator struggled to parse. When it finally rendered the message into standard English, Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. Return the heirs. His crew turned to look at him, confused, but Marcus understood immediately. He sprinted back to his quarters where Luna and Nova were playing tug-of-war with his spare boot. When he entered, they both stopped and looked at him, their eyes holding that same impossible intelligence, now tinged with what looked like concern. "What have I gotten myself into?" Marcus whispered. The communication console in his room activated on its own. A holographic figure materialized 9 feet tall, with features that were simultaneously lupine and aristocratic. Its fur was midnight black shot through with silver, and its eyes glowed with an inner fire. It wore armor that seemed to be forged from starlight itself. "Human," the figure spoke, its voice resonating with barely contained fury and desperation. "You have in your possession the Crown Princess and Crown Prince of the Lycarian Empire. They were being transported to a secure facility when their diplomatic shuttle was attacked by separatist forces. The escape pod malfunctioned and crashed on your world during the storm. We have searched through the night." Marcus looked down at the 2 pups, who now seemed far less playful and far more regal, despite their small size. They sat at attention, watching the hologram with recognition. "We detected their life signs in your dwelling," the figure continued, its tone softening slightly. "I am Lord Commander Fenris, protector of the Imperial bloodline. I must ask, what are your intentions, human?" Marcus could have laughed at the absurdity of the question. 2,000 warships in orbit, and they were asking his intentions? But as he looked at Luna and Nova, remembering how close to death they'd been, how small and vulnerable they'd felt in his arms. He understood something profound. These weren't just heirs to some alien empire. They were children. Lost, frightened children who'd needed help. I found them dying in an ice storm, Marcus said quietly. I kept them warm, fed them, made sure they survived the night. That's it. That's all I intended to do. The silence that followed stretched for an eternity. Then Lord Commander Fenris did something unexpected. He placed his clawed hand over his chest and bowed deeply. The Lycarian Empire owes you a debt that cannot be measured, Marcus Chen of Earth. You showed mercy to our young when you could have ignored them. Or worse, you asked for nothing in return. This is not the action of a lesser being, but of one with honor. The two pups suddenly transformed, their small bodies enveloped in light. When it faded, they stood as holographic projections themselves, slightly older versions wearing elaborate regalia. The larger one, Luna, spoke in perfect standard English. Thank you, Marcus Chen. You will always be remembered as a friend of the Lycarian Empire. As transport beams began to shimmer around the pups, Marcus felt an unexpected sadness. In one night, they'd become something like family. Nova, the smaller one, seemed to sense his emotion. Before vanishing completely, the young prince sent him a final message through the hologram. We will not forget you, kind Foreman. The ships departed as suddenly as they'd arrived, leaving Marcus standing alone in his quarters, holding a boot covered in alien puppy teeth marks. The interstellar incident reports would take weeks to file. The Confederate government would have questions. But none of that mattered as much as the small metal pendant he found on his desk, left behind as a parting gift. It bore the seal of the Lycarian Empire, and beneath it, 3 words engraved in both Lycarian script and English. Friend of the Crown. Marcus smiled, pocketed the pendant, and went back to work. Glacius 4 didn't seem quite so lonely anymore.